Going?
Yep.
You turn it.
I did. Started it, so I figured
Nice.
it out. It took a couple weeks.
All right.
We are live.
What's happening, Nick?
I think we're about to have some terrestrials.
Yeah. So, hello to everybody that's joining us. Missed you guys last week. Colby stole the show. He had his little thing with Rosenbauer. So, you guys haven't watched.
Didn't even do any work. You just
No.
sit there and talk.
Just sit and talk.
Tie, doesn't
Exactly. He had no pressure, you know?
Yeah.
There's no pressure. So, Nick is eating Jack Browns right in front of me. That's not cool.
I promise you,
He's eating the Jack Browns burger.
the
right in front of me.
Elvis. Peanut butter on a burger sounds crazy, but it'll change your life.
That's okay. I have really, really high class special beer today. This is the Poor Boaters Refreshment, and it was actually voted America's best beer in 1893. So that's it right there. Might have been America's only beer in 1893. And then Nick got beer delivered from Jack Brown's again.
Oh, yes.
So we're gonna wait another minute or so and let everybody catch up and hop on. But we've got a couple of really fun flies for time tonight. This will be good. And we'd like to hear from all the folks that have been watching over the last few weeks. Give us some ideas of things y'all might want to see tied next week. We're going to try and stick on Thursday now, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of our night now.
Yeah.
We're going to try and keep doing this on Thursday nights just to get a little bit of a schedule going. So
Man, everyone wants to bite of my burger.
they do, I'm
Yeah.
sure. Well, I want to bite of your burger, but that's all right. All right. So here's what we're going to be tying this evening. We're going to tie two flies. This is the Transparant. All right. And then we're also going to be tying the Crowe Beetle, which is fish killer. So we're only, a month or so away from terrestrials starting to show up and become important. So trying to keep everybody ahead a little bit with their fly tying and be ready when the season comes in. So we got folks on? Yeah? All right.
Oh, yeah.
Sound check. Everybody can hear? We good?
I think so. Fly look good.
You're gonna want that, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
That's my sample. All right, so welcome everybody. We're gonna tie a couple terrestrials tonight. First thing we're gonna tie is a Transparant, and then we're gonna tie a Crowe Beetle. And like I was saying, we're only a month to 2 months away from terrestrial season, and these flies become really important as the trout begin to run out of aquatic insects and turn to different bugs that live on the banks. So I'm going to talk about how we fish these, when we fish these, as I tie. As always, feel free to ask questions about how to fish them and how to tie. So let's get started. God, it smells so good.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, a little bit uncool.
Hey,
A little bit
do
uncool.
what you gotta do.
All right, we're going to start with the Transparent.
You got Gene Branham out there.
Oh, wow. Doc.
We miss you, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. Hope everything's well out there for you, Doc. So, we'll start with the ants. I'm tying on a size 14. You see that, Nick?
Mm-hmm.
Size 14 dry fly hook. You could go smaller, you can go bigger. And listen, there's a lot of ways to tie ants. So some of you may say, well, what about dubbing or this, that? I'm going to get to why we tie this one the way that we do. And there are variations, just like with everything in fly tying. So we're going to start off, get our hook ready. Let me show a couple of the materials we're going to use. So threads, boom, okay? You can make the bodies out of different threads. You can use flat wax. I'm going to use round thread because I feel like it's a little bit easier to make the shape of the ant, the little balls on the front and back. You look there, you kind of create a little abdomen and thorax, okay? And then hackle, black hackle. And then if you want to add legs, which I'm going to do tonight, there's a lot of different things. We've got these silly legs, these these nymph legs. They're great. They're really supple and soft for dry flies. They work really well in nymphs. If you just got round rubber, that'll work as well. Okay, so let's get started. So in tying, what did we tie last time? We tied like comparidons and
the comparidon.
Yeah, we've done some dry flies.
The parachute ant. John wants to know if you throw these terrestrials for smallies at all.
I don't, because they're a little bit small, right? I like throwing big stuff for smallmouth. So not that a smallmouth bass didn't eat an ant at some point, but it was probably about that big. So try and throw bigger stuff. Brown trout on spring creeks are what I fish these a lot, but these work great for brookies up in the mountains as well. So the ant, we're going to build the body first, and there's a lot of different ways to build up the body. Okay, I'm just going to use thread. Some people use floss. Some people use flat wax. And what we're going to do is, and you can tie it in all black. For whatever reason, the red butt ant seems to catch more fish.
Kicks butt.
Yeah, it catches more fish. A lot of flies. We've talked about hot spots in the past. All right, so some of the other dry flies that we have tied, I talked a lot about wrapping and, being careful with your thread wraps, because if you put too many on, it bulks up. It can crowd the head, wraps can roll, and so you have to be kind of careful. But in this case, we're going to put a lot of thread wraps on, because we're literally going to build the body up out of thread. So I've got some round Vivus thread in red, and I've got it attached to the rear of the hook, and we're basically going to be tying the back of this ant from behind the barb to about the hook point. So it's really going to be on the back of this thing. And if you begin to wrap your thread forward to back, you got to lay a little bit of a base. You got to be careful how you build it up, because it can roll, it can tumble backwards, tumble forwards. If it does, it's really not the end of the world. You can usually just kind of tighten it back up. All right, so if you see what I'm doing here, I'm just going to wrap some towards the rear and some towards the front, and then at some point I'm going to start to really bulk it up in the middle. Okay, and you try and make the rear section of the ant bigger than the head. Okay, they usually have a big butt, right? Ants do. So let's talk a little bit about ants. It's literally trout. It's like one of their most favorite food to eat. I don't know if it's because they taste better or they're just so vulnerable when they hit the water, but trout love to eat ants. And I fish these ants even in the middle of really big spinner falls and hatches. So for example, I'll tell a customer, hey, we're going to go out in the morning and we're going to hit the morning trico spinner fall. And then they're like, oh God, tricos, I don't want to fish tricos. People don't like tricos because they're tiny and they're hard to see. But the reality is you're using that spinner fall and millions of tiny little bugs on the surface simply to get the fish up and eating, right? They tune into that. And when a fish eats a fly as small as a trico, it has to stay very close to the surface and just barely sip and be efficient, right? Because if it swims too far, it'll burn more calories than it takes in, okay? So when they're sitting there doing that, sipping, what if that really big fat thing floats right down, right? Or that really tasty treat right there floats down. There's a really good chance they're going to take it, okay? So the idea is you use that hatch to get the fish up and feeding, and then you fish something a little bit bigger, something that's a little bit more visible. Now, the ant can be tough to see, and I'll get to that in a minute. There's certainly ants that you can tie that are a lot more visible, right? Parachute ants that are made to float up and be really buoyant. But this ant, the reason it's tied with thread instead of dubbing is because you actually want it to fish in what we call the film, which is a place just in between, like the surface and under, okay? And this fly is going to be sparsely hackled, and it's going to actually like sink just a little bit. And when an ant is drowning, it is a really, really easy target for a trout. Okay, so Nick, you see what I'm doing? I'm making like a little, I'm bulking it up in the middle, okay? And you just gotta be careful with your wraps. If they roll, if anybody's tying along tonight and they roll off the back or off the front, don't panic. Just make some tight wraps, and you may see mine roll here in a second. It's because you just kind of went too many times in one place, right? So you still gotta kind of work back and then work back forward. okay? And do you see how that's making a really nice little body there? And we want this to be bigger, oops, than the head that we're about to create, okay?
I've had a lot of luck on this fly, like putting some split shot on it and fishing it.
Yeah, exactly.
The fish that are sitting on the bottom too, like piggy fish, you've been fishing nymphs too and can't get them to eat anything. You sink an ant like this, and it's game over.
Now the hard part is because it's hard to see. You're usually sight fishing it to a fish that's really, really close to the surface. So I mean, you literally may set the hook based on you see the plop of the fly, you see it plop, but you may not be able to pick it up, and then you kind of see your timing, and then you see the fish's mouth simply go like this, and then you assume that that's him eating you, and that's it. That's how you got to set the hook on that. All right, I'm almost done here. Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
In the camera? Got any questions? Anybody asking questions?
No, looking good.
Okay.
We had a couple questions asking like what size we're tying this on. I told them this was a 14. What other sizes do you like to use?
I don't go too much bigger. So I'm just gonna whip finish that off. So size 14 and size 16 are mostly what I tie. So I'm just whip finishing that off, okay? And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come in with my black thread, okay? And I'm gonna pick up and I'm gonna move forward. I'm gonna leave a pretty good space in between the abdomen. Oops, look at that. I got a nick in my thread. A nick.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
I got a nick in my thread. That's a quick trick.
That was a pretty quick.
That's a quick trick. You don't need a bobbin. Well, you can get a threader. My mom, if she's watching, she probably doesn't see me putting my mouth on stuff in the middle of a pandemic. Right? Sorry, Mom. All right, so anyway, got our thread on, lay a little base here, and then we're gonna move forward. And we're not gonna go too far close to the eye. If you get too close to the eye, all your thread wraps start to roll off the eye of the hook, okay? So the head of this fly, of this ant, is gonna be back behind the eye, okay? And we're gonna do the same thing we did before. We're gonna start laying a base forward and backwards and trying to build this up into a little tiny ball that's gonna end up being the head of the ant, okay? So, these things are hard bodied. We're gonna get this thing hardened up, and you're gonna end up having, when it hits the water, it'll make a little plop, right? Similar to the beetle we're about to tie, which is gonna make a big plop. A really big plop, right?
Plop.
I'm all about the plop because I hear it, right? And terrestrials, everything we've been told is like you gotta gently present the fly. Well, if a mayfly is hatching out of the water, it doesn't make a plop at all, right? And so during a mayfly hatch, they don't want to hear a plop. But when terrestrials are hitting the water, they come from above. They always come from the shore. You see that?
Yeah, that's great.
Just kind of like a little ball built up. Okay, and now, as far as how we're gonna coat these things, there's several ways to do this. So, for those of you who have been tying a little bit longer and have things like UV cure, clear cure, you can put some on and hit it with your UV light and lock it in place and be good to go. For those of you who tie a lot of saltwater and bass bugs like I do, if you have epoxies, you can tie a whole bunch of these and then epoxy them and put them on your turners and let them get really hard. But for simplicity, what we're gonna do tonight is I'm just gonna use this right here. This is high gloss head cement, okay? So it's a cement, but it leaves it shiny, and so a lot of saltwater guys tie with this. If you want to show off the head of your Krelex or your Clouser or whatever, this is good stuff. It works just like cement, but it just leaves more of a shine. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tie this thing off, and I'm gonna get it nice and coated, and then I'm gonna let it dry while we tie the beetle. And then I'll come back and finish the fly off once it's nice and dry, okay? Okay. Sound good, Nick?
Awesome.
Sounds great, Brian.
Sounds wonderful.
Sounds great. That sounds like a really good idea. Okay. So let's just, we got our red and our black thread on. Let's just go in and kind of just tie it off real quick. And when I put this stuff on, you guys will see how this stuff works, okay? It does penetrate some, sort of like your regular head cement. So we'll probably put like 2 coats on, but I'm gonna put a nice drop and just go and kind of lay it on, and you see it'll really
Just using a bobbin.
Yeah, bodkin, just
Or bodkin,
drop
yeah.
it right on there. Okay, and we'll get this, I wanna
Looking
get it
shiny.
coated all the way around. And the ants are shiny, right? So what'll happen here is, as this first coat kind of dries, it won't be quite as shiny, right? It's kind of absorbing it. So we'll let that dry for a second. I'm gonna put a second coat on, and then we'll kind of set it aside, and I'll get started on my beetle, and then we'll come back to this, okay? So, brook trout love ants as well. So calendar's about to turn to May, and a big majority of our mayflies are gonna hatch in May. And then by the end of May, we have the drakes. And then after that, the mountain streams lose quite a bit of their bugs, right? You have some stoneflies like yellow sallies that'll hatch in June, but there's really not a whole lot of bugs up there in those mountains coming out of the creek. So things like ants become really important, stuff that falls in from above. All right, can you see that all right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put one more little, you can see it starting to absorb, right?
Yep.
Kind of see it a little bit. I'm gonna put one more little coat on, put it into some foam, and just let it sit. And then we're gonna get started on the Crowe beetle, backed by popular demand. You guys right now?
I really just recommended it so I could get the samples.
Yes, that's the problem right now is all of the requests are coming from Nick, and it's all 100% selfish.
Just looking at my guide box, seeing what I need. Brian, you should tie this.
So you get my flies, and I get to watch you eat Jack Brown's burgers.
That's pretty good for me.
All right, I shouldn't give him too hard a time. He did buy me a beer, so that was nice. All right, cool. So I'm just gonna take this off and put it in the foam here, and we can touch it up later. But we're gonna put how's it look?
Looking good.
We're gonna put the hackle and the legs and stuff on after this. Okay, so moving on to the next fly is the Crowe beetle. Okay, and this thing is just a killer fly, and our Japanese beetles here usually show up about the 10th of July, and it takes a little while for them to kind of get there in mass. But you know, if you've got plants at home, you'll see them. If you've got rose bushes, they usually hit those up first. And then as they start to eat, creeks like Mossy Creek are loaded with multiflora rose, and they love those, and they'll eat those, and they'll pile up on them, and they'll just fall into the creek constantly. And once they've eaten those, they'll start getting on trees like sycamore trees and maple trees and eating those leaves. And then a lot of them die in August and September. All right, so what a big, crunchy, juicy meal for a trout. And a lot of people who tie Japanese beetles focus a lot on that copper and emerald color that they have, but unless they're all falling in upside down, that's not actually what the fish see mostly. Mostly what they see, if you look at a Japanese beetle this summer, if you look up online on an image, is they have like a ribbed body underneath, okay? And then, you know, they're black, they got little legs. So that's kind of what is supposed to be imitated here. If you look underneath, you see that, Nick?
Yeah.
You see
Go a little bit closer.
You can see those little stripes and stuff. That is the ribbing that is underneath those Japanese beetles, and that's going to be our peacock. So let me go through the materials real quick. Oh, and then this is really important. Actually, I'm not super specific about some of these hooks because there's plenty of different sizes and stuff. But for this fly, we actually tie it on a heavy wet nymph hook. And the reason we do is because I'm about to put a ridiculous amount of deer hair on this thing and a lot of pressure on it, and an extra fine dry fly hook won't hold up. So these are 2x strong, okay? And trust me, your fly will have no problem floating due to the extra weight of the hook, but you'll want it for the pressure that we're about to put on. So you can use a heavy wet nymph hook, or you can use a heavy egg hook. Those are both 2x strong hooks. And then of course we're gonna use deer hair. Okay, And I have a little poly yarn we've been using for the past couple weeks. That's just to give him like a little superhero cape at the end so you can see him. And then we're going to use strip peacock. Okay, so let's get started. There's a lot of technique in this fly. I'm going to try my best to talk through it all because my hands are going to be doing a lot of stuff to kind of make sure that the materials sit right, because we're going to put a lot of stuff on here. All right, I'm going to use flat waxed. You need this because you need it for the strength and you need it for its ability to trap a lot of materials, okay? So we're going to get started.
Would you ever use GSP?
Yeah, you could use GSP too, but you probably don't need too much. So you don't want any of these hairs to flare too much, right? Yep. You'll see what I mean. So I'm going to cover the hook shank with thread, okay? Because we're going to be putting a lot on. Now, I'm going to come about a third of the way back from the eye, all right? And then here's the key. So if anybody's tying along tonight, you may mess this up a couple times, okay? Like you may have hair just go shooting everywhere or it may spin around. This fly actually took me quite a while to get the technique down. Not that I have it down perfectly right now. I haven't tied them in a while, but you'll see why in a second. We're gonna put a lot of hair on this bug. Like you want it thick, like a big fat tick that's been sitting on a dog, you know? So if you look at this hair, I don't know, the best way to describe it would be probably almost a pencil thickness and a half. So I'm getting a lot on, and some of it might fall off. It's better to try and put more on and some of it come off than have that thing be too sparse. So I'm gonna come into my hair, and you wanna cut the hair all the way down at the base of the patch because we're gonna need length. We're gonna use a lot of this length.
Can you talk a little more about like the hair on a patch like that and how different places vary? What that hair's like?
Yeah, so you can use belly hair. This is a little bit less coarse. This is body hair. I just happen to have a lot of those big, thick body patches. Body hair won't flare quite as much as belly. I think you can do it with belly hair. I haven't tried in a while. But yeah, you want this deer body hair. All right. So what I'm going to do here, I'll cut it off. You got to make sure you keep your fingers in position. And what I'm going to do is I gotta turn it around. Okay. So I don't want to lose anything. Kind of grab it and re-grab it. Okay. And get your underfurs out and any loose hairs out. Okay. And then you're going to come back and you're going to hold it just like this with all the tips exposed. Okay. Now we can't tie this in right at the tips because you'll lose a ton of your hair, and also because they're tapered, a lot of hairs will pull out. So if you look at how much hair I have here, you're going to come in and tie that in on the front, and then hopefully you have enough hair where we're going to wrap this all the way back and it's going to fold back forward. Okay.
Tim wants to know if you ever tie him in olive. You pretty much just stick with this color.
I don't tie him in olive, but that wouldn't be a bad idea. Tie him in olive. That wouldn't be a bad idea at all. Most of the underside of those guys, there's like there's little white ribs, and then also black legs. But olive is probably be a pretty good one. All right, so I'm gonna start attaching this, and it takes almost the entire hook shank to hold all these hairs on because it's so much material. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my pinching technique. I'm gonna pinch the hook with my thumb and my finger, and I'm going to bring the bobbin over, and I'm gonna take one loose wrap, okay, and then another wrap, and I'm gonna pull tight. Do not let go with your left hand, or if you're tying the other way with your right, don't let go with your material hand. 2 wraps and cinch. 2 wraps and cinch. And I'm moving back. I'm going perfectly right behind the one before. And my left hand is keeping the material from rotating around the hook. This material has to all be attached to the top of the hook, okay? So 1, 2, and on the second one, pull down nice and tight. 1, 2, and this is why you need strong thread and a strong hook. 1, 2, pull down, pull down. And you can see it compressing on there. Nick, can you see those wraps?
Yeah.
Okay,
you can see it well.
Perfectly in behind the one before it. 1, 2. And we're just gonna keep going. And notice my left hand is not let go. I've barely kind of been inching it back because you've got to keep holding on and keep all these hairs under control. 1, 2. keep pulling back and cinch.
You're putting a pretty good bit of pressure on it.
Yeah. Yeah, like your deer hair spinner guys would know. But my left hand is keeping it from flaring and keeping it from spinning, right? Okay, now watch your hook point. You're back here, I'm back here now, getting closer to the barb. That's where I want to be. All right. Now I'm going to let go for the first time, and a few hairs will fall out. That's okay. That's normal. That's why you put a ton on. Those are hairs that like weren't totally long enough to be attached all the way through. Okay. If they all fall out, you're starting over. But it's okay to have a few. All right, I'm going to keep on working here a little more. You want your wraps to go back behind the barb to the back of this hook. Okay. All right, let's see there. Now, all we've done is wrap thread over top of deer hair. Okay, so we're gonna put in what I like to call an anchoring wrap. We do this a lot in fly tying, it kind of secures everything. So what I'm gonna do is pick up all these hairs that are back here, okay? And I'm gonna come in behind the hair and I'm gonna take, oops, what have I done? I'm gonna come back here and I'm gonna take a wrap around the hook shank behind all my hairs, okay? And that will really help keep things from rotating. And then I'm gonna jump back up on top. Okay? Y'all with me?
Looking good.
Nick, have I lost you?
Nope, looking good.
Okay, so there we are. We've got this huge, monstrous dry fly in the works here. All right, but it's not going to be once we kind of pare it down. All right, now I'm going to go in and get rid of, now that I have a free hand and I can kind of manage the hair, I'm going to go in and get rid of all these hairs up by the front. So I'm going to come in, pull them together, and kind of cut them at an angle. You see that?
Yeah.
Kind of cut them at an angle. And if you need to trim up a little bit around your eye, you can, so that there's nothing kind of crowding you. Get a couple of these hairs. All right. One more here. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come up front and I'm going to kind of flatten all this stuff out here. Okay? And I'm going to wrap down to the eye and then I'm going to hop back up onto my big giant pile of hair. All right, so this is where we're at. All right, next step, this is important, is glue, glue, and glue, okay? So we're gluing for a couple reasons. One, that is a lot of thread wraps and a lot of material trapped there. But two, is our next step, we are going to lay down the peacock. And peacock is fragile, and it's nice to lay the peacock down. I'm just gonna lay this glue on the top, on the sides, and this is that penetrating head cement. So it's just gonna kind of suck it all up and really make our fly a lot stronger. So that's the biggest downside to this fly, is it can be pretty fragile. And you know, when you're catching big 20-inch brown trout, they have teeth, and their teeth like to snag on all these little things. You see how shiny it is, Nick?
Yeah.
I got a lot of glue on there, and that's gonna help kind of support this thing from the inside out. All right, next. Let's talk about peacock, okay? So you can buy this stuff stripped. That's what I've got here. Can you see that all right?
Mm-hmm.
Color's not super important. They have these in different colors. But before they had this stuff, I just had to strip it all myself, and I still usually do. I stole this off the rack downstairs. So how do you strip peacock? Well, the easiest way to do it is literally to get a pencil with an eraser on it and lay your peacock hurl down on the table and just slowly take the eraser and rub it across it. And all those little tiny fibers will come off, leaving it like this. So there's people that do different stuff. They let them soak and do other things. And soaking can help make them more pliable, which is not a bad thing, because these can get kind of stiff and brittle. But you can buy it already stripped, and that's what I've got here. Okay. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to grab 2. almost always do 2. If they're short, you may even have to do 3, okay, to get to where we need to go. We're going to put our peacock on the back here, and we're going to come back up about halfway, at least, if it'll get us that far. All right. So, I've got 2 stripped pieces of peacock. I'm going to take my thread back, and you want your thread to go, you want these wraps to start right back at the very back, okay? I'm going to tie them in at an angle.
Is that the butt side first?
Yeah, the butt side, because the other side is really frail, you know, and it's hard to wrap with them. All right, so I've got the butt side wrapped in, and I'm going to advance forward, okay, to close to where I'm going to stop them. Now, here's the deal. These things are fragile, so as you wrap them, I'm going to use a technique where I just trap them with one of my fingers, right? I'll pull them around, trap it, pull it around, trap it. Let me put a little more glue down, because the glue actually helps too. It's starting to dry on me because I'm chatting too much. It's starting to dry on me a little bit, but by having that glue there, it'll make it tacky, and it will keep it from wanting to unravel as it does. All right, so let's just kind of get them started. Watch the hook point.
Are you going like one after another?
Yeah, as close as you can. You can leave a little black in between because it makes it look like those ribs, you know? All right, and so you can see here, I come up and over, and then I just touch it with my left finger. And you see how that gives me an opportunity just to kind of hold it in place, and then I just touch it with my left finger, okay? And if you want to do it, if you want to check how it looks, the only place you're going to see these wraps is underneath, okay? So you can kind of check under there to make sure that it looks nice and uniform. And then here it comes around, and I'm going to take my last wrap, and I'm going to tie them off, okay? So can you see
You're
that?
taking it about halfway, you said.
Yeah, you won't make it to the front, and you don't need to go to the front anyway, because that's where the head's going to be. So you can see those ribs in there. Look pretty buggy, right? All right. Just kind of cutting my tips off. Now, next step, all this hair that we've tied onto the back of this thing has got to come up and over and forward, okay? And so you want it over the top, and you want it slightly coming up both sides, okay? Let's look at the one I tied a little while ago. You can see it's coming up both sides, but you don't want it to cover up all these wraps of peacock that we just did, okay? So how I hold my fingers is really important, all right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come back here and kind of get all the hair I can get, okay? And I'm gonna pull it forward, up and over. And when I do, I'm gonna put one finger, my middle finger is gonna be on the left side of the hook, my index finger is gonna be on the top, my thumb's gonna be on my side of the hook. And I'm gonna hold all 3 of them there, like that, okay? And you see how that keeps the hair from going up and under, okay? So, I've got my hands in position. I'm gonna bring my thread up and very loosely wrap it twice, and then keeping your hands there, you're gonna pull down. Okay.
How do you know how far to like tie that back in?
I'll show you in a minute, but it's back. It's a third back. It's the same spot where I tied all my hair in, where I started my wraps. It's the same spot I ended my peacock, right? But if this didn't come forward and fold forward nicely, or it's too far on one side and not enough on the other, then just fix it right here, okay? So this is where I will turn the fly over, and I'll take a look at it, and I'll see if I like how it looks, okay? And if you do, proceed, okay? If you don't, just undo it, and maybe you need to move it a little bit forward on the hook, like Nick was saying, all right? I'm gonna put a lot of pressure on this, and you can see those hairs up front are starting to flare a little bit, okay? And then, one more step, I'm gonna peel it back, and same thing, I'm gonna take an anchor wrap on the hook shank, and then jump back up, okay? So now it's not gonna roll.
Nice.
Nick, you look like you're not keeping up.
I am.
Nick bought me in all
People
day.
aren't asking me enough questions. I don't have too much to keep up on.
They're zoning out, you know?
Good.
Oh, man. Okay, so.
I just keep picturing the fish I'm going to catch on this.
This is a pretty big fly, and it makes a big splat, but being black, it can get lost in the water, which actually can be really hard to see. So we're gonna go back to some material we've been using the past couple weeks that's super cheap, super buoyant, and very high vis, and that's our polypropylene or parapost, okay? You can use as much or as little of this as you kind of need in your fly, but I'm gonna go cut just a little strand. Oh, nice scissors. All right. And then I'm going to take the poly yarn, double it over my thread, and then I'm gonna bring it up and I'm gonna pin it right on the top, like that, okay? All right, and that's like his little Superman cape, right? Just give it a pull and trim it to whatever size you want. You know, you don't want it to spin your leader up or be too crazy, but you need enough in the top of that fly where you can see. Okay, now it's trimming time, okay? So we're gonna go in and we're gonna shape the head, and we're basically gonna make the head like a little square, and then we're gonna pick the legs out, okay? Because the legs are already tied. You don't tie them on, you free them. All right, so first, actually, sorry. The next step is we're gonna tie the fly off, okay? We don't need our thread anymore. So advance your thread back to the eye of the hook, and then go ahead and throw in your whip finish, okay? Or your half hitches, however you need to do it, okay? All right, we're tied off, okay? First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring my scissors and come straight across the front, stopping just short of the eye of the hook. Can you see how my scissors are oriented?
Yeah.
I'm gonna come across, I'm gonna place my scissor against the eye of the hook so I don't cut back further, and I'm gonna come straight down, okay? So basically your hair is gonna come out to the eye. You with me?
Yep.
All right, so that cuts off the front. Now I'm gonna pull my indicator out of the way a little bit because I don't wanna cut all it out. And I'm gonna lay my scissors flat. He's gonna get a flat top.
Nice.
Yeah. I think a lot of
The
people
only one getting a haircut right
I think
now.
a lot of people are getting flat tops right now.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Okay, so look, I laid my scissors down flat on the top, and that's to cut all the hairs that are kind of sticking up. All right.
Thomas wants to know if there's an ideal number of turns for a good whip finish.
You know what? I don't know the answer to that. I do 4, and then I apply glue. So I think glue is really the most important thing. I mean, I think it also depends too on like how heavy your denier is and how exposed the head is and all that stuff. How many wraps you need to take. But I don't have a lot of flies come undone. I think probably because I use a lot of glue. All right, so head's flat. Now I'm going to come in on both sides, and I'm going to kind of cut straight back, like I said, making a box. So we went across the front, we went across the top, we come back here, and we go across one side, and we go across another side, and let's see, that's his head. See him?
Nice. Looks awesome.
Little square. Okay, now, this part's hard. You need a really good fine point scissor, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna go underneath the fly and all the way at the back where it's tied in, and these lower hairs here, we're gonna literally just pick a couple of them out, you know? 4, 5, 6, I'm gonna use the point of my scissors. Don't hit your peacock curl, and you don't actually scissor them, you just pick. So I'm gonna go in here, and you see what I did? It broke 4 or 5 of them free, and then you just pull them forward. And if you want more legs, you go in and you get a little bit more. Can everybody see that? Can you guys see that all right?
Yeah, you can see that.
That's the legs on one side. Okay, maybe I want to get a couple more. Okay, and you don't want them on the top, right? You want them on the side. There go a few more. So just nick them with your scissors, and they'll come right out, okay? So that's the legs. Can you see that, Nick?
Yeah.
On one side, and then I'm going to come in and do the same on the other.
And then are you tying them into place, or they just kind of stand back there where...
No, so look, I got legs, right? Okay, if there's little stubbles on the back, you can go in if you feel like it and tidy them up. But man, the more this thing gets chewed up, like the better it fishes, okay? So I'll show you in a second here how I keep those legs forward. Although they kind of want to be forward, right? You see that, Nick?
Yep.
They're just chilling there. They're ready. He's ready to swim. He's trying to make his way across Mossy Creek. He has no chance
Good luck.
at surviving. Okay, so just like we've been touching on before, glue is the key. I didn't bring any up, but one glue that I usually do when I'm tying a bunch of these is I use Flex Seal.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have it here at the shop. It's called Flex Seal. So it's a flexible glue. So it's pliable. It doesn't get hard and crack. That's what I usually will coat this entire Beetle with is Flex Seal. Flex Seal. It's like one of those like funny commercials, you know,
Yeah.
like where they like glue a boat together.
I fixed some duck hunting waders with some Flex Seal.
Yeah. So I'm just going to use what I've got here, which is the high gloss head cement. And this will work okay too. Like I said, even though these are hardening agents and stuff, you're not going to have this thing sink on you. Okay, so I'm going underneath first, and I want to protect, let me see if I can turn it and show you guys. I'm going to protect all those wraps and all that peacock, okay? So I'm getting that, and then I'm actually going to get the hair itself. Now this is the key. Where the legs are, you take your bodkin and you come up into the armpits. See that, Nick? Watch.
Mm-hmm.
Put a drop on and come up into the armpits of those hairs, and they'll like...
Stay out a little bit.
Yeah, they just lock in place, okay? So start at the back of the hook with a drop and just kind of come forward and... Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, now I'm going to... Especially with the Flex Seal, you come in and you do the whole body, okay? And it protects it, it makes it tougher, and it makes it shiny, just like a beetle. Put a lot of glue right here at the back where all those hairs kind of come up and out. Okay, one more drop for the eye, head. And it'll just, that glue will just soak right in, okay? And this will really help make your fly last a lot longer because they really chew these things.
Awesome.
Okay, that's the Crowe beetle, or as they call it around here, the Trowe beetle. So the guides fight over these. None of my guides tie these except for me, and they all fight over them. I used to literally give them out as Christmas gifts. I don't like to do it anymore. Baja mud. I like to hoard them.
I think we should probably do this fly again next week.
Okay, so if you guys have questions about this, ask us right now. I'm going to go back to the ant and finish that guy out. But a couple things about beetles. For, number one, the sound of a beetle hitting the water, okay? Once these things are falling out of the trees like crazy, it makes a really big plop, okay? I've actually watched brown trout on spring creeks who are positioned upstream, and you can see them. I'll even tell clients, I'll say, don't cast over them, right? Because when you cast over a fish, the biggest risk is that you line them or you hit a little hard and scare them. It gets to a point where they tune into the sound of this fly so well that you can cast it 5 feet below them. If you're downstream of the fish, you land it behind them, they hear the plop, they turn around, they swim all the way down, they eat it. So they love to eat these beetles, and the sound is the dinner bell. It's not something that typically scares them, okay?
Do you ever put rubber legs on this fly?
Nope. I don't
It's
think
not
you need
really
it. It's got all these real buggy deer hair legs. I mean, they're just really buggy. So I don't think you need to add that stuff. You can, I mean, but these things, I mean, they really don't refuse these very often. The hardest part is like, you know, keeping them up, keeping them from falling apart. So that's it. Japanese beetle, but it's called the Crowe beetle. All right, where were we?
While you get that next fly, you want to tell people how they can save some cash on the flies right now?
Oh yeah,
It's almost the end of the week.
We have a fly sale, and all flies are 20% off. So if you buy them on the online store, you just put a code in. What's the code?
Fly sale.
Fly sale.
All lowercase, no caps, no space. I'm about to post it.
Yep, it says it right there. Put it in, and you just get 20% off all flies. It's not limited to anything. It's basically all the flies we have. So we're going to keep running sales because people are liking them, you know. All right, so we're back to the ant, and you can see that stuff's dried up pretty nice. Doesn't have that real shine to it like it had before, but we're gonna put a little bit more on afterwards. It's just once you have hackle and you have legs on these things, it's hard to really coat them with a lot. You end up getting some on your hackle and everything else. So we'll put a little bit more on when we go to button this fly up. But next step is we're gonna get our thread back on. Okay, so the rest of our entire fly is gonna be tied in between the head and the abdomen there. So we're gonna get our black thread back on, okay? And it's still a little tacky, which is good. It'll help hold some of these materials in. All right, and then I'm gonna put legs on. You can tie them without legs, right? The hackles themselves can just be the legs, but I'm gonna put some rubber legs in addition to them, just to make it harder on myself, make it look a little bit more buggy. So you can use a lot of different types of rubber. We've got this stuff here in the shop. This is we already went over this, the silicone legs, and they're kind of the right size for this. So I'm gonna cut 2 pieces to make my 4 legs, okay? And just like I've done with so many other materials, I'm not gonna try and tie this on and get it situated. I'm gonna take the silly material and I'm gonna fold it over evenly on my thread, okay? And then I'm gonna place it on the side of the hook, okay? And I'm gonna take one more wrap, secure it, and I'm gonna do my other side. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna work backwards and forwards with your thread to create some space and pin down that rubber, create some space for our hackle that's gonna go on here in a minute. All right, so I got another piece of rubber, and I'm gonna come in tight, and I'm going to place it. So if you look from above, you can see it makes an X, right? Mm-hmm. And they're long, they're a little long. You always leave stuff long. I'll trim them even more in a minute, but I'm just gonna kind of get these to a manageable size. There we go. Okay, so you can see the legs are tied on the side, and there's like kind of a V there. And what I'm gonna do with my thread is I'm gonna go backwards towards the thorax, and I'm gonna go forward towards the head. It's gonna pin them down a little bit. Now you can fix that if you need to, but what I'm doing is I'm creating a space for where the hackle is about to go, all right? Can you see that, Nick?
Yep, that looks
created like a little bit more of a spot for our hackles. All right. All right, so we have our legs tied in and we have our legs spaced out, and then you're gonna go and get some black hackle. Grab a feather here. Oops.
The types of hackles.
There's all kinds. I mean, if I had a nice saddle, a black saddle, like a really nice one, that's what I would use, but this is what I found. We have like the Misfit material box that we use for our iron flies and stuff. That's what I get to work out of a lot of times. The box of Misfit materials.
And some Hobby Lobby specials.
Yes. All right, so I got a hackle here. We don't want too big stuff, too webby, but you don't need to take like 4 or 5 turns of this stuff. In fact, you want it to be pretty sparse. Like we were talking about earlier, you really don't want this thing floating real high and dry on the surface. You want it to kind of fish in the film. So I'm going to strip off the barbs where I'm going to tie it in. And like everything, you want the webs cut backwards. The shiny side will be up front, okay, so that if they lay any direction at all, they'll lay backwards slightly. And we're going to come in and tie it in at an angle, all right? So I'm going to take 2 or 3 wraps, and then I'll go and get rid of my stem. Don't cut your legs off. If you cut your legs off and you have a 3-legged ant, they work just fine. And you give them the nick, the defective ant.
I'll take them.
All right, we got our hackle in, and now we're just gonna very carefully start to palmer our hackle. And I say carefully because you got these rubber legs on here that you don't want to.
So you're just
trap.
splitting the V right down the middle.
Yep, you're keeping it right in that middle little space that you created. And that's probably all I'm going to take. I just took 3 wraps, okay? And I'm going to kind of work my thread back and forth. And by doing that, it keeps you from trapping anything. So you can see I work back and forth, and you don't pin a whole bunch of your hackles down, okay? Let me take one more. Missing all my legs and all my hackles. Okay, and very carefully go in and trim your hackle stem off. And then what I'm gonna do, what I like to do, is some people would tie it off right there. I'm gonna pull everything back out of the way. I'm gonna advance my thread to the eye because it's a heck of a lot easier to tie your knot without all that stuff in the way. So
Thomas Harrison was asking, you tied that from the butt of the hackle, not the tip?
yes, you can do the tip too. You can do the tip. It's just that these things are kind of misshapen. You know, I like the size of the hackle right there. All right, so I'm tied off, and then so you can see let me make sure my legs are right. They are, and that's kind of what it looks like from the back.
Oh yeah.
Can you see that well?
Yeah. See the legs a little better.
Yep.
You wore a black and red shirt for your black and red fly.
I did, true. Got my loom shirt on. Okay, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna hit it with the high gloss one more time. And I think you'll notice on this last time, since there's no more that can really get kind of sucked up by the thread, it's going to stay shinier, okay? Because now it's gonna be all kind of on the outside. And just be real careful with your hackles. I'm just kind of touching it to the top. And let's see how that's going to look. Oh, that looks real nice. I think you should come in with that white paper one more time and take a look at this thing.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to.
Okay. And you can see it's all shined up. And that last coat will probably keep it nice and shiny. All right. And then when you fish it, you sight fish it, you have to use the force because you really can't see it. So you have to see the little blip where it hits. You have to imagine the pace of the water. You can kind of use your leader. And then if anything sips or disturbs surface, or you see the white of the mouth, it's because your ant's getting eaten.
Speaking of a leader tippet, what do you think usually end up fishing with flies like these based on different water conditions? Or?
This is you're probably gonna be on 6X with these guys because the fish are, and you're usually sight fishing, the water's clear, you're right at the surface. The beetles, you probably have to throw 5, otherwise it'll spin you up, you know. And you want a stiffer leader to turn it over and make that plop. All right, that's the Transparant and the Crowe beetle.
Awesome.
We sell Transparents. If people get frustrated or don't want to tie them, we sell them. We don't sell the Crowe beetle. People really don't.
You gotta tie it.
You gotta tie it. You gotta tie it. So send us some pictures of your flies. We'd love to see that. Some of you all have been doing that over the last couple of weeks, or bringing them to the shop and showing us. We love seeing that. And if you have more questions after this evening, all you gotta do is email or call the shop. We'll be here to help. And we'll pick this up next Thursday. We will be here next Thursday, hopefully.
We've got some Transparents on the website, so pick some up at 20% off.
That's right.
Take a look at them, tie them up.
Yep.
See, Kevin can't use the I'll buy him excuse anymore for the Crowe beetle. He's got to tie it.
That's right. Yeah, it's Kevin on.
Yeah,
Kevin Kreider. Send us some feedback. Let us know some flies you would like to see. We may break from our dry fly theme next week just because we've done them a few weeks in a row now, even though it's dry fly season. We may break from that and do something different. But let us know. And you know, we miss seeing everybody. Although there's been a lot of folks hanging out, coming to the window and saying hi and buying stuff and buying online. And we hope everybody's getting a good time and a good chance to go out and fish and explore new waters. Call us if you need to know some new places to go, because some of the streams are busy, and but there's plenty of places to spread out. We're blessed to have a lot of water here in Virginia. So, Nick, how was your burger?
That was awesome.
Good for you.
I wish I had a second one.
Good for you.
Got a second fly.
Thanks for my founders.
Anytime.
I appreciate
Thanks
it.
for my Crowe Beetle.
Thanks for everybody watching, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks, guys.